You will not let your kids go out alone after hearing this story. In April 2nd, 1980, Ambato, Ecuador, it was the kind of morning no one would remember. Vendors were setting up their stalls, mothers were sending their kids off to school, and streets buzzed with the usual noise of daily life. The familiar chatter of bargaining, the clinking of coins, and the scent of fresh bread filled the air. Nothing felt off. The townfolk moved through their day with their daily rhythms, some stopping for a coffee, others chatting with familiar faces or hurrying along to work. It was just another ordinary morning. That day, a woman walked through the market, scanning the crowd. She wasn't shopping, she was searching. Her daughter, only 9 years old the night before, hadn't come home. This wasn't the first time a child had gone missing, but people had stopped asking questions because police always said the same thing.
She probably ran away, she'll come back.
But she never did, none of them did. The whispers about disappearances had become just another part of life in Ambato, tucked away as something distant or unsettling. People assumed the worst. Maybe the girls had run off with boyfriends or left for better opportunities. In time, they became statistics and life went on. Then something would happen that would change everything. It was as if God wanted to stop the whole thing only for a while. For days, rain battered the town. It was relentless, turning roads into a thick river of mud, and people were too busy dealing with the storm to think about anything else. Their focus was on the destruction outside their homes, the flooding, the damage to their fields. The market stalls were moved inside, and people worked together just to keep the town from being swept away. And after one especially brutal downpour, something surfaced. A farmer out inspecting the damage noticed something tangled in the roots of an old tree that had been collapsed. At first, he thought it was just a bundle of clothes. Then he saw something that shocked him. It was barely recognizable, its feature distorted by the muck and the water that had consumed it for so long. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He did nothing more than stare, paralyzed. By the time the police arrived, more of the same thing had appeared. The rain had loosened up the soil, revealing a truth far darker than anyone was ready for. Well, it turns out that the missing girls had not run off with boyfriends or left for better opportunities. They had been here the whole time. The discovery sent shockwaves through Ambato. What had been whispers now echoed like a horrible truth. The authorities scrambled to piece together what had happened, but the terror in the town was just beginning. And as the town reeled in shock, someone finally remembered the man. He had been there for years, always in the background, never drawn attention. The man wasn't part of the community, but he had been around long enough that no one really questioned him. No one really asked where he came from or what he did. He wasn't a beggar, but he wasn't really a worker either, just someone who lingered, watching. He had a quiet presence, blending into the corners of the market, often with a hand tucked into his coat, or holding something like a bag of candy or a piece of fruit. But it was nothing out of the ordinary. People recalled how he would talk to little girls, offer them candy, a kind smile. After all, he seemed just like any other old man trying to spread some kindness. He never approached anyone aggressively, but he always seemed to linger near the children, waiting for them to come into his view. He would say something like this, "Isn't the day beautiful?" or "Would you like some sweets?" He was never pushy, but the way the girls smiled back sometimes felt off. A fleeting, hesitant smile that quickly vanished when their parents appeared. Later that day, the police found him, and when they brought him in for questioning, he barely resisted. He just sat there silent, expressionless. And then out of nowhere, he spoke. At first, it was just a whisper. Then clear as day, he said,
"I've killed more than 300 little girls."
The officers didn't believe him. That was impossible. How could anyone get away with something so horrific? How could someone commit such unspeakable acts without anyone noticing? The officers were skeptical, chalking it up to some kind of delusion. But when he insisted on taking them to the graves, they began to listen. He led them to the hidden spots. One after another, he knew their locations too well. It was as though he had been there, placing each body carefully in its resting place, all while hiding them from the world. In Ecuador alone, they uncovered 53 bodies, but that was only one country. For years, he had been moving between Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru, preying on small villages, places where no one would notice a missing child. His method was always the same. His pattern was always the same. He knew where to go, who to watch, or who would be the easiest targets. And the worst part, he didn't just kill them. He had a routine, a ritual, a terrifying ritual that gave the murderers an eerie sense of purpose. When asked why he didn't beg for forgiveness, he didn't even try to lie. He just shrugged and said, "It was my mission." He was sentenced for 110 murders, but Ecuador had a problem. The maximum sentence, no matter how horrific the crime, was 16 years. And in a system overwhelmed by cases like this, he would not be kept behind bars forever. In 1994, after serving just 14 years, Pedro Alonso López walked free. Colombia arrested him immediately, but the system failed again, and by 1998, he was released, and then he disappeared. No one knows where he is. No one knows if he is dead or alive. Some say he was killed in the prison, a violent cold end for someone whose crimes made him infamous. Others say he is still waiting and watching. It's the silence after the storm that is most unsettling. The idea that he still might be lurking in the shadows, hidden within the chaos of daily life, is the part that keeps people awake at night. They wonder every time they see someone new in the town if it's him. They wonder if the man in the background watching quietly from the edge of the crowd is the one they should fear the most.